This week is a triple header. We have Vayakhel-Pekudei and Para.
Tell me about it.
Right, it's either Balkora. Yeah. So we have, I think Pesach was Vayakhel-Pekudei, but it was Chodesh. He didn't have Para, he had Chodesh. But so we have in this week's Parsha, it's really, much of it is a recap from what had been mentioned in previous parshas in Truma Tetzaveh. You have Vayakhel-Pekudei, the actual implementation of the building of the Mishkan, and in Pekudei specifically the taking of the accounting. We're very, very specific. The numbers of everything that was donated and how much was donated, everything is counted out. We're given very specific numbers. It's almost almost difficult to understand why the Torah goes to such detail, recording all of the specifics and accounting and how much everything was and what was accounted for. So the Medrash raises the following question. I think it really opens up for us just understanding in basic concepts that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. But the Medrash asks the following question, that the Gemara tells us, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, he says, Eina bracha shora el al davar shora min ha'ayin, that blessing only is bestowed upon something that is hidden from the eye. That we generally, when something is counted or flaunted, there's no blessing on it. You don't want to. You don't count things, because when you count them, then blessing is removed from it. So the Medrash asks, so why do we have all of the accounting that is done in this week's parsha? So the Medrash says that when it's done for a holy purpose, it's different. So I'd like to understand these concepts. Number one, what is this idea that if something is to get a blessing, it has to be hidden from the eye? I guess on a more basic level, it's something that we deal with all the time, the concept of ayin hara. Right? Ayin hara is not just a superstition. People take ayin hara very seriously. And what is the idea of ayin hara? What is the notion of an ayin hara? There's some that learn that, in ayin hara there's actually some kind of metaphysical energies that emanate from somebody's eyes that can look and damage. I just want to see if we can understand it more on a, intellectual level. What does it mean? Is it just some kind of transcendental thing, or is it something that we can really have an understanding on? And then why, if it's hidden, there is blessing. It's no hidden, it's not blessing. For a holy thing, it's okay. Well, if it's not okay, then why does it make a difference that if it's for a holy thing? How does this idea that work, that something that is counted is problematic? Why does counting make it worse? The Medrash also says that Moshe Rabbeinu, who is the Ne'eman, he's the most trustworthy in Hashem's house, he was the one that led the counting. So somehow also that's tied to it, because Moshe Rabbeinu is doing it, then it's okay. And I thought, just to take it a step further, the Medrash points out that we have the things you have to count. For example, you have to take tithing. That you have to trumas and maasros. You have to count, because you have to take specifically a percentage. You need to know how many bushels of grain do I have, so I know how many to give. I need to know how much money I have that I can give maaser. So there is counting. But if it's for a holy purpose, it's not problematic. So how does Moshe's involvement now? It makes it better because Moshe's involved. Just getting an understanding what exactly is going on. The other thing that was bothering me, and I'm trying to get an answer, I know maybe we'll have an answer on this too, is that one of the places where we see you're not supposed to count, in fact, by David HaMelech, when they took a census and they counted the people, there actually was a magefa, there was a plague that tens of thousands of people died from because they counted the people. And that's why, if you go to shul for a minyan, what do? There's a pasuk that's got 10 words in it, or Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, which has 10 words in it. So you don't count people, you count, you're counting the words in the pasuk. What bothered me is that that's for a holy purpose. So why by a minyan are we also saying Hoshia Samecha? For a holy purpose, you should be able to count, like we see in the Parsha. You should be able to count. There is a Gemara in Brachos that says it's like you read it and you think it's the strangest thing. The Gemara says that if somebody is worried about Ayin Hara, somebody's worried that he should be susceptible to Ayin Hara, there's a certain incantation. It seems to be like an incantation you say. You say, I am a descendant of Yosef. Ana mizara de Yosef katino. Yosef did not try and take visually that which did not belong to him. He didn't want to take the wife of Potiphar. And as you do it, you should take your left thumb, put it into your right fist, and your right thumb into your left fist. And say this incantation. What's going on? What does that mean? I'm from Yosef, and Yosef is protected from the evil eye. And as you're doing it, hold your left thumb in your right fist, your right thumb. What's going on here?
It's the older version of Khamsa.
Right. We'll have to see. That's the idea of Ben Prat Yosef, good, but we don't say Ben Prat Yosef and put your thumb. What does the thumbs have to do with anything over here? What's going on? So just to recap, we're trying to understand that the Medrash points out before it says that it's not a problem, the counting, it's because Moshe Rabbeinu is the Ne'eman, he's trustworthy. B'chol Beiso, B'chol Beisi Ne'eman is that there's no one more trustworthy. And we said that even though generally bracha is not bestowed on something that's hidden from, unless it's hidden from the eye, here it's for a holy purpose that it's okay to count, but otherwise you should not be counting. So we're trying to figure out why counting makes it worse. Why is it a problem to count? What exactly is this concept of Ayin Hara? Get an insight into it. Maybe understand why by minyan we don't rely on the fact that it's for a holy purpose. And the last question is, what does the Gemara mean that in order to protect yourself from Ayin Hara? So I understand Yosef, who did not use his eye to benefit from something that didn't belong to him. I can hear, and take your right hand, your left. What's going on? So there is a Gemara in Bamitzia. We all learn as kids, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade. Eila Mitzios. Eila Mitzios is the second chapter of Bab Mitzia that deals with the laws of finding lost objects. It's very. I heard that Rabbi Soloveitchik, the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva University, Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan, used to say it's one of the most difficult chapters. So why are we teaching that to kids? So Moshe Feinstein used to say is that teaching children how to respect things that belong to other people is one of the most important things that we need to be teaching. And that's why you start with young kids, the idea of the obligation to return objects.
Who said that?
Moshe Feinstein. So the Gemara says there is a concept of what's called Yeush. Yeush literally means giving up hope. So the Gemara says that if you find something after the person has given up hope from ever getting it back, technically you can keep it. You don't have to give it back. If there was Yush. No, not having a simon, it would be the reason for a person to give up hope. Because how am I going to get back? I can't prove it's mine. But even if it has a sign, if the person has given up hope, for example, you know, it flew out of the window on the 405, you know, you could have all the simanim in the world. You're not going to get it back. The person gives up hope. The person, if you find it, but you need to know that he gave up hope. So the Gemara says there that when you find money, so the question is, even if it doesn't have a siman, so the question is, but how do you know that the person knows that he's lost it in order to be able to have given up hope? So the Gemara says that there is an interesting natural phenomenon that Adam Mishamish Bekisa B'chol Shah, that a person throughout the day is patting his pocket to see if his wallet is still there. So as soon as money is lost, you can be assured that if you found it, that there was Yeush. Because if he knows he lost it and he's not no sign, he's not getting it back, the only question is, how do you know that he lost it? Not a problem. You know how you know that he lost it? Because Adam Mishamish Bekisa B'chol Shah. Because a person is touching his wallet. He's all the time, he touches his wallet to see if it's there. And therefore, I guess today an iPhone would be a good example of that too. You know, we're always feeling, you know, is it, and therefore you know that if you found it, it's already after the fact that he knows that he's lost it, and therefore for sure he was Meyayish, and he was Meyayish. Then you can, now that's if there's no sign. If it's a wallet and it's in a private place and he assumes that the person's going to return it, then obviously you can't assume there's Yush. But the concept is, person knows with his money, he knows that it's gone. Shortly after he loses it, he'll know, and therefore by the time he found it, you can assume that he lost it. What's the psychology behind that? What is the psychology that a person is touching his wallet all the time? So what's the pshat? So it's very interesting that the word for money, it's also very interesting in English, it's similar too, you know, is mammon. The Maral says mammon comes from the word mimeno.
It's also damim.
Yeah, damim is value, but mammon is money. Mammon, mimeno, is because a person very often thinks that that money is his. It's from him. Money is from him. Something that you feel very close to. It's mine. So we need reassurances all the time. How do we reassure ourselves that it's ours and we feel that we control it, that we control? You're checking all the time to make sure that it's there, right? So something tangible, you're able to physically touch all the time. A person, to reassure himself that he is in control of what he has, if it's tangible, he wants to feel it all the time. You have coin collectors, they're always looking at their coins. Stamp collectors, looking at that. Something that you own, to give yourself the reassurance that it is yours. So there's a tactile connection to the item, right? Things that you can't always touch. So there's visual. You try to look. People go out and look at their gardens all the time. They do walkthroughs. There's a visual, right? Sometimes it's things that you can't touch everything and you can't see everything, but still there's a way that you feel in control of it. How do you feel in control of it? Counting. Counting something. People count their money all the time. Like counting something is also a way of showing ownership, showing control. That's the idea of counting. So you see the idea that, and it's an innate thing because we want to feel that we're connected to the things that we own. And the way we show ownership is either by touching, by looking at, or by counting. So counting is a very strong way of showing ownership over something. We feel control over something. The problem is that from the Torah's perspective, we understand that everything comes from God. And really, God is the one that bestows us with what we have. And that's what gives us blessing. Blessing, by the way, bracha. The Reb Chaim Volozhin says, he brings down a thing from the Rashba, he said, word bracha comes from the word brecha. Brecha is a source, like a pool. That when you have blessing, blessing is you're connected to a source. When you're connected to the source of blessing, then it opens up. That's the shefa, the pipe of blessing is abundant. That's why, by the way, the Vilna Gaon points out. He says that the word bracha, the shorish is beis, reish, and chaf, right? He says they're all the letters that are double in the alphabet. Beis is 2, reish is 200, chaf is 20, because blessing is double. You get a double. And that's why, by the way, the word bechor, says the Vilna Gaon, the bechor notel pishnayim, the bechor gets double. The firstborn is the same letters, is because it's also the idea of blessing of double. But in order for that blessing to exist, that connection of blessing to exist, there has to be that connection that it's coming from God. When man inserts himself and he takes ownership that it's mine, what he's really doing is he's cutting himself off from the connection that his item has to God. Because he's making it, it's mimeno, it's from me, it's mine. And therefore, when a person feels that it's his and does not attribute what he has to God, so therefore it's a consequence, not even a punishment. By disconnecting from the source, you lose the pipeline of blessing. You lose the pipeline of blessing. That makes one susceptible to the negativity that can be associated without having the blessing involved. That is the idea. The idea is that if it's hidden, when you're keeping it hidden, it means you're not showing your own personal ownership. You don't keep it hidden, you're flaunting it, you're taking ownership. You're taking ownership, then you lose that connection. And counting is the same thing. You count, you're not attributing the real owner. You're taking ownership yourself. You're not attributing, you lose it. I'll tell you where it becomes a little scary, and we all have that same thing. I think it's the Stipler, the great rabbi, lived in Bnei Brak. His son is Reb Chaim Kanievsky. So it's Reb Yaakov is the Kanievsky. This is the Stipler, Reb Yitzchak, Yaakov Yisrael, Reb Yaakov Yisrael Kanievsky. I think he writes this. I think he writes it in his, I believe it was in one of his letters, that he says that he's seen many, many children that had capacity to reach great heights, but were not able to do so because of ayin hara. And he says that very often parents parade their children and show off their children. It's a very scary concept. I mean, and we flaunt our children. It's like almost taking ownership that these are ours and not having the right mindset that yes, we had a lot to do with it, but there's another partner there that's the most important partner, that these are talents, Rush Limbaugh uses the expression, lahavdil, is talent on loan from God, but that the idea is talent is not something that, we can take pride in for ourselves. Really, it comes from God, and that creates ayin hara. I mean, it's a very scary concept. But the idea is the same, is that even our children, they're not our possessions. They're not ours. We're responsible for them, and we have to help direct them. But the appreciation the more appreciation that we let, that God is connected, that allows for more bracha in their lives as well. A very, very difficult to understand concept, but that's very important, because we all like to show off the abilities and talents of our kids. I mean, but I think it has to be done in a way that it's not that we're taking ownership. It has to be very careful that it's not a question of taking ownership. So the idea really we're saying is that blessing is only, the shefa of blessing only comes when we recognize the connection. If we break that connection, then we lose it. Right? Then we could understand that if something's done for a holy purpose, it's not problematic. Money for the Mishkan, we are showing off not ourselves, we're showing off what was done for God. If something is being shown off what it's being done for God, then it's actually connecting it more to Him, not less. So then it doesn't take away from the concept of the connection, so therefore it's not a problem. And that's what the Medrash means, that if it's done for a holy purpose, it's not considered to be problematic. That's the pshat in the Medrash. I know that my father tells me, my grandfather, he had 4 boys. He would not let them walk to shul on Shabbos together. It's not, the expression is a Yiddish. You don't take out people's eyes. You don't want to, right? They had to go, they staggered them. That's the sensitivities, that some people have, and I think by the previous generation was much greater. But so that's the idea there. So, but for a holy purpose, then it's okay. And by the way, I heard from this is an idea I heard from my Rosh Hashiva, Rabbi Yochanan Zweig Shlita, should be well. He says the same thing is like this. Yosef, if a person doesn't want to take from what somebody else has, so it's even worse, meaning if you're taking ownership of what you have, that's half the problem. If I want to take ownership of what somebody else has, then it's for sure not understanding that the connection that's over there. Not wanting to take a grasp, but take control. Which is the digit on one's hand that gives one control of what you hold on to? Thumb. Without a thumb, you can't hold anything. We cover the thumb. The idea is that to protect oneself, we're showing that we're not grabbing or controlling. We're covering the thumb. That's the idea. That's the symbolism of what it represents. It's not just like a magic thing. It's the message behind it is we're trying to show that we're not in control. We're not taking that's the message over there. But I think that still the one thing I was trying to figure out is that what's taka the pshat with the minyan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think the pshat is like this. I think that it has to be. You see, even things that could be done for holy purposes, people can take control over. One of the things we see, you see all these politics going on in shuls. Like it's my shul, and you have to break. I can't daven there. I got to daven there, because even sometimes things that are done for what should be for a holy purpose, for the sake of being megala kvod shamayim, people somehow figure a way how they use it for their own honor, not necessarily. So I think that the Moshe Rabbeinu was instructed. He was the one, because if Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't somebody who was Ne'eman, who was doing it for the sake of the Shem Shamayim, then you could hear how even collecting fundraising for schools, it could be done for a person's own ego. It could be done for, you can have ego, you can have self-interest, even for holy things, it could be interjected. Therefore, you need to have somebody like Moshe doing it, then you're allowed to count. So I think minyan, yes, it's for minyan, but not always is the idea of people coming together to daven. It's not always l'shem shamayim. It's not always done to connect ourselves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It should be. And therefore, in order to preempt that it shouldn't create a problem, even for a case of a minyan, we count in the way we count, and we don't, just in case it's not being done 100%. It's like, it's. I davened at the at Chabad this last Shabbos. I'm not saying it's just an issue by Chabad, but I came across a new concept, JFK. You know what JFK means?
Just for Kiddush.
Just for Kiddush. You know, it's like, you know, even shul, if people come into shul, you know, it's there's a category of people now, they call them the JFKs, you know, they're, you know, so even things that are supposed to be for higher or holy purposes doesn't necessarily mean that it's done necessarily. Therefore, we count for minyan, we count Ashias Hamecha, we don't. But the idea, basically, and I think the way it is just in terms of our relationships, ourselves, and our own abilities, what we have for our kids, is I think a person should feel pride and satisfaction with accomplishments, with their family, with their children. To be very, very careful that it's not being done in a way to exclude God's involvement in what's been accomplished. Whether it's our assets, whether it's our children, whether just understanding, thanking God for everything that we have. And people are very, very careful about that. Even, you know, how many children you have. There are people like, I have enough, thank you. You know, it's like, you know, people don't want to say that because you don't want to create that sense of that you know, if you show ownership and you take control over something, that opens up the capacity of you've lost that pipeline. Once you lose the pipeline of blessing, bad things can happen. That's I think it's a scary concept, but I think it's a concept that we deal with all the time. And just having a little bit more focus on it, I think, will be beneficial for all of us.